Hello, my name is Chrissy, and welcome to the channel. As you can tell from the title of the video, today I'm gonna talk about Burn the Witch, Taito Kubo's follow-up to Bleach. I know, I'm super late to the party here, but in my defense, I only just recently read this one. See, currently I'm trying to catch up and read everything related to Bleach in some way or another, and since the series is connected, I figured I should give it a read, and well, I have some thoughts, so let's get into it. So I imagine that a lot of you watching are already aware of what Burn the Witch is about, but in case you aren't, here's a hopefully brief synopsis. Burn the Witch follows two witches named Nini Spanko and Noelle Nihashi. They work for this organization called Wingbind, which is located within Reverse London, a place that is basically regular London but flipped. This means that there are similar structures and such, but the main difference is that magic and dragons exist within this realm, and its citizens are aware of and can see these creatures. Now normally, Nini and Noelle deal with harvesting and conserving dragons, but one day a new mission comes up that makes their job just a bit more exciting. Okay, I've gotten the synopsis out of the way, so let's get into the actual review, which is going to be a pretty positive one. Burn the Witch, with its 5 chapters so far, is a really good time. The characters are really fun, there's some nice world building, and the story hasn't been fleshed out much yet, but what's there is really intriguing, and I'm very curious as to where things will go in Season 2, whenever that comes out. So, as I just said a few seconds ago, all the characters of Burn the Witch are pretty fun. Starting with the protagonists, Noelle and Nini are very likable. We don't know a whole lot about them right now, at least in regards to their backgrounds or anything like that, but there are small bits of information that are kinda interesting. For example, it's cool how they both have lives in Front London. In a way, it feels a bit superhero-like to me, with the whole double lives thing. Also, I'm slightly curious as to what Noelle's situation is. She lives by herself in Reverse London, so I have to assume that she doesn't have parents or a guardian of sorts. But I can't be too sure about that. Also, how and when did she find out she was a witch? As for Nini, I have a similar question as to how she found out, as well as how she actually balances being a pop star and working for Wingbind. I mean, I don't expect these questions to get answered, but they did arise while I was reading. Moving on, Billy Banks Jr. is another very likable character. And in fact, right now, he's probably in the running to become my favorite character overall. Now, admittedly, I didn't think much of him at the start, but once I got to that scene where he freaking snipes the Cinderella Marchen, I suddenly started really caring about this guy. So, obviously what Kubo is going for is that Kyoraku Urahara type, where initially you might not think much of him because he seems a bit lazy or jokes a lot, but when push comes to shove, he's suddenly a powerful badass. I really like that type of character. They tend to be among my favorites, so yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing more of this guy. And now as for the others, Balgo is okay. I don't hate him, but I don't love him either. I think the main issue with Balgo is that there's just not much to him. His whole shtick right now is being obsessed with either Noelle or Osushi and nothing else. And while that does lead to a few bits of comedy, those are traits that can only go but so far. At some point, he's got to develop beyond that, especially if he's going to be a major character. Now, that final scene with Noelle did show some growth, so hopefully we'll get more of that Balgo in Season 2. It also looks like some sort of reveal with Balgo will come down the line, so maybe he'll finally become interesting. We'll see. The Top of the Horns is a very colorful cast of characters. There isn't much to go off of, but from what we get in chapters 3 and 4, it's very obvious that these guys are really shady. What their plan is with Balgo, I obviously don't know yet, but there's no way that it's a good thing. And lastly, to bring up Macy real quick, I don't actually have anything to say about her. But to be fair, so much was going on in those last 2 chapters that I wasn't really able to form an opinion on her. She also didn't make too much of an impression on me, so I don't know, maybe something awesome will happen with her later on, but for now I got nothing. The world building of Burn the Witch is pretty interesting. So first off, everything revolving around the dragons is really cool. I like how some function like farm animals, while others can be transportation or even a source of electricity. I don't think I've ever seen dragons depicted in this way. In most of the stories I've read or watched, they're either evil or friendly companions to the hero, or something along those lines. Now, granted, Burn the Witch does use those tropes as well. It's mainly that added element with the resources and such that really stood out to me. Another neat little detail is how damage to a building in Reverse London will cause damage to the same building in Front London. Considering that, I imagine that causing minimal damage in the city is pretty important. Though that does make me wonder about that destruction caused in Chapter 2 by that one dragon. Did those structures have Front London equivalents? And if so, does that mean that those structures got damaged in Front London as well? Which, you know what, that's wild to think about if that's the case. I mean, I can only imagine how confused and upset those living in Front London must have been. And the last thing that I will bring up here is the Markens. The concept of there being these 7 special dragons that are named after fairy tales is a really cool one. A couple of the names are pretty self-explanatory, but the others are pretty vague. I mean, I think I've managed to figure out a few of what those other fairy tales could be, but I won't say them for now. Anyways, it's very clear that these Markens and the effort to eliminate them will be the focus of Season 2 of Burn the Witch. Right now, my main thought is that these Markens are going to end up being these misunderstood creatures that our main characters will end up trying to save in the end. Now, of course, it could go a completely different way, but something about that setup at the end of Chapter 4 tells me otherwise. Another case of having to wait and see, I guess. And that's all I've got for this section. But before I move on, I just want to mention one small detail I enjoyed. That being that I love how Ninny and Noelle's wands look like guns. In a world with witches and wizards, I expected regular wands. But no, Kubo had to give them wand guns. It's different, and I really like it. So most people are already aware of this, but Burn the Witch is in fact set in the same world as Bleach. This connection is revealed at the end of the pilot chapter, and I have to say that I really like how Kubo did this. This world feels so different throughout the chapter, that the thought of the 2 series being connected never really crosses your mind. I mean, sure, there is a brief mention early on of how something is done in Japan, but it's pretty brief and vague. There is no mention of hollows or shinigami or anything along those lines, So for all you know, it could be referring to an organization that exists within Burn the Witch's universe. It could have even been a reference to Bleach that didn't mean anything. I mean, the chances of that being the case were quite small, but still. Anyways, the two worlds feel so separate that when you see that sign that says Soul Society Western Branch at the end of the chapter, it's an awesome moment. It's a really cool reveal, and honestly makes me wish that I hadn't known about the connection beforehand, because if I hadn't, I probably would have lost my mind. Also, side note, I love how the word Bleach is hidden within Burn the Witch's logo. See, when I first saw this logo, I had noticed small things like the slash through the W, but I didn't look at that thinking, oh, this makes the A in Bleach. I just thought it looked kind of cool. So when that showed up at the end of chapter 0.8, I was like, oh, that's really cool. It really is quite clever. I like it. But to get to a point though, the fact that this series is set in the same world answers a question that I had had since starting Bleach, which was about whether or not there was a Western version of the Soul Society. Now I have my answer, so thank you, Kubo. Now, admittedly, there is a small part of me that wishes that this series wasn't connected to Bleach, as it would have been nice to get something completely separate. But, to be fair, despite it being in the same world, Burn the Witch is still its own series. So, I mean, ultimately, I'm cool with it. And now I can't help but wonder if there'll ever be a crossover between Burn the Witch and Bleach. I mean, I don't know how that would work, because the world of Burn the Witch feels so different. But maybe Kubo would find a way to make it work. Now, to be honest, I don't really need or want a crossover. I'd prefer it if they remained connected but separate. But that's just how I feel. And it's not like I complain if there was a crossover, so whatever. And that is everything that I have to say about Burn the Witch for now. So to sum it up, it's a lot of fun, I enjoy it, and hope to see more one day. If you're a Bleach fan, chances are you've already read it, but if you haven't, give it a read, you might like it. And so now we are at the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, and you're new here, feel free to like and subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye!